Good evening and welcome to our Next Steps update. I'm Roger Patterson, your senior pastor. This is Kirby Follis, our executive pastor, and we're so thankful that you've tuned in tonight with us. We want to start with prayer. Kirby, would you lead us in a quick prayer as we begin?
Absolutely. Father, thank you for the time we have tonight. Lord, what a blessing it is just to lead even in this season, maybe especially in this season. Thank you for our church family and our friends who are tuning in tonight and throughout this week. We just love you, Lord. We trust you for your hand in our lives and our ministries and our church. Guide us as we meet tonight and share this information. Use us for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. You know, the last time we got together and did a conversation like this was back in May, and we had, on a dime, shut the church down and gone to online, services, and we've been doing that now since, I guess, about the 15th of March, but we were forecasting, hey, we think we're going to open at the end of May, and we did that May 31st. Tonight we want to talk to you about our next steps on a number of fronts, and ultimately it's going to lead us to a couple of bits of business that we'll discuss next Wednesday in person at our Westview campus and then vote upon on the 13th of September in our worship services, and some great things, some exciting things. But I want to remind you and start with some great news. First, our vision, right? Our vision is to lift our city and the world by generously giving the gospel of Jesus Christ. Fundamentally, we do that by gathering on Sundays and then going out into the world. And yet we found ourselves in a place where our gathering was extremely limited.
Right.
Excuse me, and in many ways it still is. But we have gotten creative, and we've gone digital, and we've tried some new things, and we're seeing some fruit in that. So for a second here, let me just toss it to Kirby and ask you to review for us some of the things we've seen through our Vacation Bible School ministry, both with our children, our middle school students, and our senior adults.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so excited that our team was able to put together some great ministry events for these groups. And you'll see some of the results here. But Vacation Bible School, just shy of 370 total kits distributed there. So in the midst of a time when we can't gather, we've still got 370 people around our city, children who were able to do ministry, and the hard work of our Kid Stuff staff putting that together was just so rich. So a lot of celebration there. VBX is our middle school expression for VBS. We had an average viewers per day 67. So a lot of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders really piling on for that and taking advantage of that offering. And then finally, our senior adults had VBS in a box. We passed out 80 kits, but you can see we had 20 other seniors register to watch those videos that don't even live here in Houston. So we're reaching senior adults with this ministry all over the place.
Your mom actually tuned in.
Absolutely.
Is one of those 20 other seniors from other places.
Yeah, from West Texas, yeah.
And that's been amazing, and you'll see a little bit more of that here today, just to hear about reach beyond our geographic, really the immediate inner loop, and that's been special. But it's been digital yet personal in so many ways, and so we're real proud of our team, especially in the children's, youth, and senior adult areas, for the great work that they have done to help us stay relevant in a very different time. We've also launched the Science and Faith podcast with Dr. James Tour. We used August apologetics. I was telling my wife, we were at dinner one night, and I was telling her a little bit about what Dr. Tour and I had been talking about, kind of dreaming up with a podcast. His travel has been limited, his speaking opportunities limited. And he says, I'd like to digitize this and let's reach as many people in this space as we can. And Julie said to me, she says, why don't we use the August Apologetics platform to help launch his show? Well, let me tell you something. Our staff has worked with him. He's lined up some incredible interviews. But in 4 weeks' time, we've seen over 41,000 views of those shows, the Science and Faith podcast with Dr. James Tour. Incredibly well done, incredibly well produced, and it's on his YouTube channel, our YouTube channel as well. But it's hitting a niche market where people who long for more insight into aspects of faith and science, really where those things come together, where they collide. And it's fascinating. And
as a result, Dr. Tour has seen some growth in the subscribers to his channel, too.
Yeah,
pretty
and
tremendous.
So we will work with him for continued reach, but that's some exponential digital reach. Normally we'll have 400 people or 500 people on a Monday night to hear these speakers. Well, now, that's just blown up exponentially through the digital means. And so we're real excited about that. Also in our worship services, since May 31st, we've averaged about 390 people in person across our worship services. So that's the in-person services. But online, we estimate about 2,535 to 2,540 unique viewers per week. And so there's some reach there. Folks, we heard about someone, Chris was telling me about this week, who has been tuned in from, I think it's a place called Jewett, Texas. And their son goes to Rice, and their church is unable to do the digital, and they've been tuning in on a weekly basis with us. They finally filled out a connection card. So it's just, again, our reach beyond our immediate geographic area, because the world is what God's called us to share the good news with Jesus around the world.
You've told the story, but our Belize partner used it as their mainstream service there for a number of weeks.
That's right. And so it's just humbling and exciting. So which leads me to this. Matthew chapter 16, verse 18 says, "And I tell you, on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." The Lord Jesus Christ is still holding his church together, and he is still building his church, and he's still getting his message out. And it's pretty fascinating to get to partner with our Lord and this team and with you in so many ways to help touch more and more people with the good news. I want to share a little quote with you, something that I ran across this week, and I typed it out via text and sent it to our whole exec staff, because the reality is the environment we're in regards to church and our worship and our faith walk will look different for a while. It looks different, and it will for a while. But Jim Randall, CEO of Oxano Consulting Group, says there is something more to accomplish than just regathering, streaming, or making a budget. Don't lose sight of the Great Commission's impact in your community that sits at the heart of the gospel. And so as we dive into some of the details, right, we're going to get into just some important information, important facts. Our goal in all that we're doing is faithful, sustainable ministry that is beyond just reaching a budget, making sure we can stream services or regather. Our heartbeat is still the same, to lift our city and the world by generously giving the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I hope you're going to hear us saying, even in the midst of a pandemic, we are moving forward. So let me toss it to our special executive pastor over here, and he's going to talk us through our our next steps returning to worship.
Great. You know, when we shuttered in March, we began right away to think about how we can get back. And not knowing what we didn't know, we had to learn a lot. But on May 31st, we did return to in-person worship. And our goal was not to meet and then shutter and meet and then shutter. So we were doing everything we could to stay safe and to meet together and to still have that spiritual intentionality to the services we'd always fostered here at Westview and Cross Point Church. So we've been doing that, and we've shared some of those numbers with you. Even when Houston had its highest infection rates there in July, and it was such a frightening time for so many people, we continue to meet safely. And in the midst of those infection rate numbers, our staff and volunteers have just done a great job, really executing well on that. What it's led us to understand is we've got a lot of people who are still waiting to return. And there's a variety of reasons. We know what some of them are, and we're trying to work on those. People are staying away, and they will until they can get more comfortable with what's being reported about COVID-19. Right. We're all in that boat a little bit. Or until we open up more of the church. Or until we invite them back. And we're going to talk about that tonight. Specifically, we've been in phase 1 since May 31.
That's right.
We have been chomping at the bit to get to phases 2 and 3, and it's been tough to wait. But we've also said we need to be very well laid out in our plans and well communicated. We need to be flexible and adaptable and safe, but we want to maintain an online presence too, because that can't go away. You just mentioned Jewett and my mom in West Texas and a bunch of other people who have tuned in when they couldn't before, and we want that to continue to be true. So beginning Sunday, September 13th, we forecast we will start phase 2 of the return to worship. This is a 1-hour model. And the reason we say that is because it's basically worship only with the support ministries so families can come. What that means is on that Sunday, our children's ministry resumes. It means there will be nursery care for children birth through kindergarten, children's ministry to the kids of those ages, and then we'll have a kid rally. At Westview, it'll be in our gymnasium. at Cross Point. It'll be here in our loft, but we'll return to that 1st through 5th grade high-energy worship and learning experience for those age kids so parents can come sit and worship and be fed too. We're grateful for that. We will continue to require masks for kids 1st grade and up, and you'll see more about that. I know our kids stuff team communicated even today some details about the return. So check your inbox when you get a chance, reach out with questions, but that's coming.
And let me just add to that, because in their email, they'll talk about if you've got young children that need care, we'd like to know. It's not a reservation. We're not going to turn you away. We just want to be as prepared as we can. And so help us do our part by communicating to us your intentions. And so look at your email, spend some time in that. I know there's a lot that a lot of different organizations are asking you about, but please, if you plan to return to worship with young kids, help us help you and them and their experience. That'll be really important.
We want to be prepared for your return and do that well. That'll help a great deal. As we talked to our student ministry and heard from them what they felt like would be the most significant for their ministry, what we heard them say is it might be useful to have some midweek time, some small groups that could actually start to meet again. It's so important with students to have that authentic together time. So we're proposing some driveway groups and some community groups for them midweek rather than a Sunday morning experience starting that week. So you'll see more about that. I saw today on social media we posted their driveway groups. I think that sounds both fun and exciting. I know it'll be meaningful for the students and for our staff.
Just pray for a cool front to come through.
Right. Give us some cool air to go with that. So there won't be a specific Sunday morning expression for students, but students can always be here and worship with their families, and we're glad about that. The last thing we'd say about this is early on, we asked some of our folks to just hang back and feel free to worship from home. We wanted there to be a liberty this whole time.
Sure.
There's no guilt or shame in coming or not coming. It's all about being somewhere where you can worship freely and feel good about that.
That's right.
We've wanted that the whole time. What we're saying on September 13th is if you're in one of those groups that we've said, hey, hold off, we're inviting you back, understanding that we are ready for you to return if you're ready to return. But we get it. You're going to self-select, back to my previous point. When you feel more safe, when you feel ready, you'll come. But we're ready for you when you get here, and we're excited about it.
Let me add, I think one of the best things we were able to do through this journey when we opened and stayed open was say, look, you self-select. We're putting that decision in your hands to come or not to come, in particular in the younger age groups. And we took the edge off of whether we're open or closed. And we just said, look, we're open and we're coming to you if you're staying home. Yeah. Or if you want to come to us, come on, we're ready for you. But it's exciting that we're at that place. And so we ask you all to select, do your own self-selection. And we look forward to having you when you're ready.
That's good. We're going to keep doing some of the things that have really made us feel safe during this time. They won't be new to most of you, but we're going to remain masked for the foreseeable future in mask on campus. We're going to maintain social distancing. We're going to encourage families to sit together because you probably came together and you live together, so that makes sense. But we're going to keep that social distance seating per our governor's guidelines. We want to be really sensitive to follow what's been laid out for us in that way.
And we feel like we can take a next step of change even in our seating dynamic once they update their guidelines.
That's right.
At some point. Otherwise, we're under that guidance, and that's the thing we're going to honor.
And you've said before, we'll say again, we'll add the number of services and the overflow space that we need to make sure folks can come to worship if that's what they're trying to do. Right. So take a look at this schedule, if you will, starting September 13th. What you'll really see added here is on that Sunday, we anticipate adding back a second morning service at Cross Point. Historically, that's been at 9:30, but let me point out this is a 9:15 a.m. worship service, and really the main reason for that is we need the extra time to disinfect the campus and to get things clean before that 11 o'clock service hits. It just takes time to fog the room, wipe everything down, and really be ready to go and feel confident about that. But you'll see we've added Kid Rally at both of those times. So starting September 13th, 2 morning services at Cross Point, both with Kid Rally, so families can be present. At Westview, we maintain our current worship service and structure, 8:30 a.m. classic worship and 11 a.m. contemporary worship, but we also add Kid Rally there. So you're getting a way for families to attend any of these 4 services at either campus and have the support for the younger kids
Now, you may say, wait, that's different. We used to do 11 o'clock classic, 9:30 contemporary.
Right.
That is changing, and I'll tell you a couple reasons why. In particular, when our older members come to that classic worship service, we want our building to be as clean as possible and prepared for them, and so we've moved that to the first hour. And then we also, in the next phase, you'll see it, we're going to go to one Bible study hour, and it's solving some problems for us. But that classic service will be at 8:30, and the contemporary will be at 11. That's what we've been doing these last number of months. That's what we're also going to continue in at this point.
Absolutely, and we'll show you that model here just coming up. So phase 2 is a 1-hour model. We're excited about it. September 13th is just a week and a half away, so make your plans now to join us. It's going to be a great day. But we project on October the 18th, we'll be able to return to more of a 2-hour model, meaning that you would be able to experience your community group and worship, meaning students will meet intentionally and separately as they've done in the past, and the Kid Rally will still go, and then we'll have graded kids Bible studies. So it'll be a return to the 2-hour model of worship and Bible study. We invite community groups to meet back on campus as our campus pastors, Chris DeArmond and Robbie Dobbs, work with those leaders to figure out exactly how that looks. We continue social distancing and wearing masks and the things that keep us safe until we get data or state leadership that convinces us otherwise.
And again, this is a target. That may change, but just know we're wanting to put out there clearly, here's what we're working towards. That's the target for it.
So take a look at this schedule. Phase 2 was September 13. Phase 3 is a tentative October 18 launch date. And we're going to call your attention to this terminology here, Room and Zoom. What a lot of our community groups have found is, one, they've reached people outside the city to study the Bible with them, which we think is pretty compelling. But also, folks who just can't leave home here in the city or maybe don't feel safe yet to return have been attending. And some of our groups have had better attendance on Zoom than they frankly had in person, which is a weird dynamic, but it's so great. What we want to do is we are working toward outfitting our community groups with the kind of technology that allows them to teach in the room, live in person with those who can and will come, but to keep reaching that audience that's maybe beyond our geography and folks.
So we're going to Room and Zoom.
Room and Zoom, absolutely. We alluded to this schedule, but I'll show it to you. On October 18th, we foresee that at Crosspoint, you maintain those two service times, 9:15 and 11. But you add in at 9:15 Bible study for kids, Bible study community groups for students, and adult community groups as well. At 11, then you get your worship hour as well, but you also get Kid Rally and more adult community groups. So we're really opening the campuses back up in that sense if we make this target, which is our goal. At Westview, Roger mentioned this to you. We are moving to a unified community group Bible study hour at 9:45. This does a number of things. It helps us facilitate the all-day schedule. It also unifies our campus and gives some freedom toward those, really compelling toward giving a choice of people to attend one service or the other, which we've not had in a while. We're thankful for that. So 8:30, Classic Worship and Kid Rally. 9:45, all community groups meeting. And at 11, your contemporary worship service and also Kid Rally. That would be your new schedule. But we've said we're going to stay flexible during this season. We don't really know everything that's ahead. We're not putting this into concrete, but this is where we'll start on the 18th, and we'll move from there based on what we see.
That's our heart. We're going to be flexible. We're going to be adaptable. We're going to be safe, and we will do our best to communicate effectively between now and those dates, and also do some leader training. So we're working with our campus pastors, our children's ministry, our student ministry, and if you're a servant leader in one of those areas, we're going to be asked to come up for some training so we can prepare you for that. And if you're able to volunteer, we're going to ask you to step in a certain way, whether it's to help us with our greeting, audio, visual, some of these other ways. Let's shift gears to another important update. This is our Payroll Protection Program update. We took this out, and I'll give you a timeline of it, but this, if you remember, it's called the PPP, Small Business Association Loan. We took this out in the late, I guess in April. And we found ourselves in a situation where we were forecasting a 30% drop in revenue. And we were looking, like every organization, we had plans A, B, and C about how are we going to sustain our team and stay on mission and shift to all that we had shifted to and all of that. And so when the Payroll Protection Program came along, we decided to go through a process and engage our leadership and whether or not we should do that. So I just want to give you a timeline here. We'll discuss this more thoroughly next week in our business meeting discussion time, but just to help you have the flow of both the schedule and our decision-making process, and because ultimately we've got to vote on that as a congregation on the 13th as well of September. On the 29th, our staff, which would be Kirby, myself, and Leanna, so business office, executive pastor, myself, met with our finance chairman, our personnel chairman, and our deacon chairman to discuss this payroll protection program. And it was coming out, and information was coming out as fast and furious. And we all did these webinars and got on and Zoom calls to understand what it was, and reached out to our attorney to understand, in light of our bylaws, how would we proceed on April 1st. And we're in a situation where, though we updated our bylaws in 2013, we have no provision to vote electronically on church-wide decisions. Everything had to be voted on in person, number one. And number two, we had no emergency action clause. On my Zoom group with pastors, we discussed this, and Mark Hartman down at Sugar Creek sent to all of us, hey, here's our emergency action clause in how, our bylaws are laid out. And so, we have that. We will ultimately update our bylaws, whether it's in the fourth quarter of this year or start the process in the first quarter of next year. But we found ourselves constrained, and yet as an organization and as a board, the executive council, saying we need to make the best decision for the congregation in light of what we're seeing before us, and even in light of these bylaws. And so we obtained some legal opinion. We met as an executive council on the 1st of April. They approved, and it's a 13-member council with Kirby, myself, Leanna as part of that. They approved us to pursue the payroll protection program loan. Now remember, that program is fully forgivable if you abide by their guidelines, and if not, and that would be to be refused, it becomes a bit of debt that you have because it's through the Small Business Association. So it was approved. We applied for the loan on the 3rd of April. On the 5th of April, we gathered our finance committee and personnel committee, and we briefed them on it. They also endorsed that action. We received approval from SBA on the 16th of April, which was an amount of $814,100. We met with our deacons and briefed them on that as well in April on the 26th. And we just took it through our teams and our normal processes. And yet, honestly, in some ways, we're asking you to ratify a decision we made back in May, April and May, that will most likely be forgiven by the end of the year, right? And so we feel very confident we'll come out of this with owing nothing, but we just believe in being as transparent as we can about the decision we made and the decision-making process. In early August, we submitted preliminary application for forgiveness. Again, the business meeting hadn't been possible because of COVID-19, but we see the option for that on September the 13th. We will discuss it next Wednesday night. We'll have more information than we're doing here on this video, and we'll look forward to having the dialogue questions you may have next Wednesday night at 6 p.m. at our Westview Sanctuary. And then on the 13th, we'll vote on the Payroll Protection Plan SBA loan, and that'll be on the ballot. So come with more information. But we wanted to do our best, as we told you months ago, back in May, as we gave a State of the Church update. Hey, we took this action believing it was the best thing. Now, let me talk to you about the process of how we've used it, because we chose the 24-week period option to use so that it had to be fully spent by the 1st of October. There's allowance from SBA for early application of forgiveness. We've begun that process. But our funds were fully used for payroll costs as of July the 24th after 16 weeks. The whole intent of that program was that organizations would use the majority of that resource for their payroll to keep their people employed. We have given no raises and other things, but we have kept every person employed on our staff.
Right.
And this is one of the fundamental reasons, really the biggest reason why we could do that. And then we've also pared back our expenses. Our payroll expense is not where it fully was, but we had projected a $3.9 million payroll expense this year. It'll come in at 3.7. So the payroll aspect of this, all of the funds were used for that, but we are pulling way back in other areas. $1.2 million of ministry, G&A, other things. We've pulled back those expenses so that we can just navigate these waters in this time. So you've also been very generous. Your giving has remained strong. We're so thankful for that.
Such a gift.
And we're doing our best to keep the team intact and keep taking ground and be prepared for when you return.
One of the things we've pointed out along the way too, Roger, is churches don't pay into unemployment insurance. So it's this huge celebration that we kept our team whole this whole time. We didn't lose an employee because we didn't have funds to pay. And also, had we gotten into that spot, which we planned for if we had to, we knew that our folks could not necessarily get in an unemployment line and receive assistance. So the fact that this was taken and used fully and kept our team whole and let us do this digital work we've talked about has been gigantic.
And as a leader, my mind is like, okay, when we get past this, we got to have our team intact to keep the ministry going. And so that has provided that as well. And so anyway, we want to bring that update to you. In the midst of that, we've also, our executive council said, when we come back, it sure would be great to get our Westview worship pastor in place. It's going to take some time. We're talking about reopening and all that. At the same time, we're aware that some people are going to be much slower to return than others, and we understand that, and there's no pressure from us. We just want you to be aware that we're available and ready when you're ready. But one thing we did want to have in place for when everyone returned was our new Westview worship pastor. And we are so excited about the candidate we're going to be putting in front of you over the next 10 days. We'll reveal his name really on the weekend of the 12th and 13th, where you'll get to meet this individual. But we want you to hear the process we went through. So I'm going to throw it to Kirby, who was in the weeds of this search. He and Christy Arman, Hardy Fairbanks, and additional team members to help find this worship pastor.
That's great. We had a great team. That's going to show here for you. As Roger mentioned, Hardy was the chair of our search team. Chris was our primary staff liaison, and these two guys were a joy to work with in this process. And then you had here 5 other members of the team from across the Westview spectrum of our family. And thank you to all of you who have been serving with us. It's been a joy to work with you. We began taking resumes in earnest in January of this year. We'd had a few come in last year from people we knew and people who sent some in, but all told, we vetted 90 to 100 resumes during that time. When we got to March and worship was shuttered, we shuttered our process a little bit too. The candidates who had risen to the top, we said, hey, if you can pause with us, great, please do. We don't know what's coming next, so we can't really just keep this conversation alive right now. A number of those candidates stuck with us, 4 or 5 really high-quality individuals who have been walking in ministry a long time, have a lot of great experience and just a robust calling to their ministry that they live out every day. But we reviewed those resumes. We conducted probably 25 or 30 early phone calls just to find intent, know people better, and then some Zoom meeting interviews with a few high-level candidates, and then our search team with our staff ranked those candidates and determined to cut off and squared it down to just a few folks left in the running there. After meeting with them and the whole team, it was just clear that God was moving with one of these candidates, our top candidate. From the beginning, Hardy challenged us, if we can't be unanimous, we can't call somebody here. We want to be of one mind. He didn't even really have to ask. It was so clear that the Lord was leading this way. So our committee voted unanimously to bring this individual to us. Our staff spent a great deal of time with this individual and resonates with that decision. And because this is an executive staff position, it's got to be voted on by the church, where we hire and bring other staff around that aren't at that level throughout the year potentially. We have to have a church-wide vote on this. So this candidate will come in view of a call on September 12th and 13th. View of a call meaning they'll come experience us for the weekend, and lead worship will experience them. And they'll meet with some folks. On the 12th, which is Saturday, that morning they'll meet with the deacon body. That afternoon, there'll be an opportunity for you as the church family to stop by. All of this will take place at the Westview campus in the sanctuary, socially distanced. But to be able to see the candidate, hear some from them, have a little Q&A and get to know them. And then finally that afternoon, our Westview worship ministry will have a time where they can really get to know their potential great new leader. And that's going to be exciting for them. Yeah. On the morning of the 13th, this gentleman will lead worship in our 8:30 service and be introduced at all services. And every member who is present in person will have the privilege to vote in taking a part in calling him to our ministry. His target start date with us is October the 1st, and we're excited about that as well. So you can see that's coming up. We just can't say enough good things until we can roll out more details, but you can watch for that. We'll discuss it further next Wednesday night in our business meeting as well.
Yeah, it's exciting. I asked for an ox. I told you this in the video last week. It says that where there are no oxen, the manger is clean, but by the strength of the ox comes an abundant harvest. And we set out to build the finest classic worship service inside the Loop. And we wanted somebody with strength, experience, pastoral, a pastor's heart, a clear calling, a chemistry with our staff, and aware of the community we're in and the excellence that our community strives for and demands. And I think we hit this ball out of the park on every one of those. So I'm really excited about it. And it's going to be great. It's going to be great. So I hope you get enthused about that. Again, we're trying to move forward in the midst of a pandemic because we believe that's what faith does. Faith looks forward to what God's calling us to, even while we have to navigate these interesting times. Which leads me to our next item up for bids. Dr. Mark Edworthy, to our executive staff. You have met Mark and Susie. Mark's been preaching for us throughout the summer. Mark and Susie spent a career on the International Mission Board in Europe, wrapped that up last year as Mark was overseeing all of our European people group missionaries. So if you're a European person of European descent, it's his responsibility to send missionaries to you. And when he left the mission field, he had over 450 employees under his lead. The IMB, even to my knowledge, considered him for their role as president. So we've got a leader of leaders has joined our team, and we've voted as a congregation to pursue the acquisition of the Missouri City campus. We've closed on that property. We're going to move Casa El Buen Samaritano to that location as its permanent home. We'll open up dentistry as well as medical exam rooms. We've already partnered with South Texas Children's Home Ministries and their counseling area and other things, faith and finances. We got some stuff going. And then we're going to partner with Attack Poverty as well. Because down at our Missouri City campus, right on the edge of Stafford and Missouri City, at Highway 90 and 5th Street, we have the chance to serve the poor, to meet practical, social, and spiritual needs by being the church deployed. Dr. Edworthy is going to lead that charge. Pastor Justo Robinson will be our Spanish pastor there, as well as campus administrator, working with all of these groups. And the best is yet to be in that. I also look at 2021 and go, it's going to be a tough year. And those who are impoverished in our city are going to have a really, really hard time. And so we're using this time right now to position ourselves to serve them well, both spiritually, medically, socially. There's some great things that we'll get to do. So I just went to our exec council. I said, we need Mark on our exec staff. I need us to vote on that. They're like, let's do it. And so that's another piece of that. So here's our timeline for church business. We had our exec council meeting on the 26th of August. We're doing our next steps address with you tonight. Wednesday night business meeting at 6 p.m. at our Westview campus at Sanctuary on the 9th. And then on the 12th, we'll have a deacons meeting in the morning at 8:30. A meet and greet with our candidate for you. Again, look for that information coming up. Choir and orchestra will have a special time just for you. And then on the 13th, we'll vote on all of these matters in our in-person, by ballot in our worship services. Kirby, give us a summary of these 3 items real quickly as well.
Yeah, so the excitement here is for those 3 items we're going to vote on the 13th is to call the Westview worship pastor, the ratification of that payroll protection program loan, and then calling Dr. Mark Edworthy to serve on our executive staff. And we're grateful for the opportunity to discuss those with you next Wednesday and to vote on those together with you on Sunday the 13th.
And don't ever forget, we're going to keep chasing the vision God's given us to lift our city and the world by generously giving the gospel of Jesus Christ. We appreciate you giving us 35 minutes this Wednesday night. I pray God's blessing upon you. We are praying for you. Reach out to us with needs. You can always text the word connect to 797979 and fill out that link. And if you have a prayer concern, anytime you can fill that out and we'll be following up with you. But no, we're praying for you and your endeavors, your kids, your ministry, your businesses, your parents, and we're just lifting you up. And we thank you for standing with us in this exciting time. God bless you, and we'll see you this coming weekend.